Did you know that all Russians are created equal? Well, that's almost true. It's just some Russians, very few, are more equal than others, the many. And that is the reason why Russia is doomed to lag behind most other countries. That is the reason why Russia will eventually fail, at least in today's form. In this video, I will open your eyes on why Russia will never win in Ukraine, and most importantly, why Russia will never win in Russia. Before I start, let me be a little immodest today. I think this message is incredibly important. It's a must-see for anyone willing to learn and understand today's Russia, to understand the motives behind actions of many Russian people, Russian officials. I want this video to be studied at the Western universities by political science students who specialize in Russia. Yes, it is that important. I'm going to explain in very simple words and with a great example what the Russian dream is. First, let me start with a small introduction. Right now, Russia is being rocked by yet another scandal. A blogger from Yekaterinburg, Maria Shalaeva, made a post in Instagram about flying in a plane to Rostov-on-Don, spending a weekend in the city, eating out at expensive restaurants, and having a good time overall. Then Maria flew back to Yekaterinburg, and this is the Instagram reel Maria posted. Who says that planes don't fly to Rostov? It's just not all planes and not for all people. So I flew to Rostov again. I got tired of Yekaterinburg boys. The man from the Kremlin is a completely different story. 200% reliable. This time, my 3-year-old boy Tim came with me. At his age, he's already flown by a military plane. And by the way, I like Tu-154 plane more than this current model we're in. Tim had fun, and the pilots even shared some potato chips with him. We were warmly greeted. We dined at Pierce Restaurant. The song played, we went to a different restaurant, Magadan, and, we had a good time overall. Maria called the time spent in Rostov-on-Don a super weekend. And I'm sure a super weekend she had. When people saw Maria's post, they became extremely happy for her. It's just they started asking one stupid question. How in the world she could fly to Rostov-on-Don? It's the city in the very south of Russia, and its airport has been restricted for passenger flights since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th, 2022. I actually remember when they closed Rostov's airport. I was sitting doing a video early in the morning. It was like 3:45 a.m. And since then, the airport's been closed. The airport is only 120 miles from the Ukrainian border, and it's right in the center of the military action. Obviously, it's been closed, just as other airports in the southern and western Russia. So, how could Maria fly to Rostov-on-Don in early July of 2025? Her video explains a lot. If you take a closer look, you will see that Maria hopped on the military plane, courtesy of, her friend, military friend from the Kremlin, the man from the Kremlin. You see, this is the military aircraft, and it's not just a regular transport aircraft. It's full of some kind of equipment. I have no clue what it is. Well, obviously, Maria knows better than I do. But it's obviously the military plane. And here she shows the cabinet, the office of her man from the Kremlin, who is 200% reliable. And we see a little bit of the head of the man of the Kremlin and, the coat of arms of Russian Federation and the Minister of Defense portrait. And then we're seeing a gun right here. Just guns are outlawed in Russia, and then you have to have a special permission. So obviously, this man from the Kremlin is a very powerful. So this man arranged the flight of the airplane to the restricted airspace. But let's rely not just on the video. Let's also hear what Maria had to answer to the question, how did she manage to fly to Rostov-on-Don when the airport is closed for everyone? I admire Maria for giving an honest answer. There's no sarcasm here. She did give an honest answer. I quote blogger Shalaeva. The planes still fly to Rostov-on-Don airport. It's just not all planes and not for all people. And I think she's right on. She just confirmed by her actions and repeated with words exactly what I said in the beginning of this video. All Russians are created equal, but some Russians are more equal than others. Thank you, Maria Shalaeva. When the information became widespread, blogger Shalaeva fell under public scrutiny. It was discovered on her Instagram, and she kind of admitted it, saying that her son, it wasn't the first time that he had been on the plane. So it was discovered on the Instagram that it wasn't the first time she flew from Yekaterinburg to Rostov-on-Don. This past winter, she flew to Rostov to have her nails done in Rostov and returned to Yekaterinburg after. In a military plane, of course. All at the expenses of Russian taxpayers. As I said before, it has blown up to a huge scandal. Z community, those people who support the war in Ukraine and call themselves patriots of Russia, are outraged. This is how the war reporters, Z people, in Russia they're called voyenkory. This is how they are reacting. Something like, oh, what a farce. Oh, when our boys get killed in the front lines, some generals vacation the girlfriends at expensive restaurants. Oh, those responsible must be found and punished, and so forth. Well, I don't really pay attention much to Z bloggers because they're part of the propaganda. Of course, the topic of the heated discussion is who was the person authorizing blogger Shalaeva using the military aircraft for leisure trips to Rostov? She answered herself. The man from the Kremlin. 200% reliable. And she showed his office. And the rumors started going wild that the man is Russia's Minister of Defense, Belousov. I think that's not true. I don't believe that. Belousov would not place his own portrait right next to the coats of arms of Russia. In his office, there would be only one portrait of Russian President Vladimir Putin. What I believe, the man who brought blogger Shalaeva to Rostov-on-Don for 2 dinners and probably for a lot of after-hour activities, that was obviously the real purpose of the visit. He is one of the deputies of the minister. It is one of the highest servicemen in Russia. He's obviously stationed in Rostov, in the southern military HQ. It's located in Rostov. And, he brings his mistress there. She's not the wife. Obviously, if she was the wife, there would not be a scandal. I don't know who that person is. Those who are expert on Russian military, they probably have figured it out, okay? I think it doesn't matter. What matters is the Russian dream. Before I tell you about the Russian dream, what it is and how it's affecting Russia, I want to take this opportunity to thank you. Everyone who is a part of Inside Russia community, thank you so very much for watching, for liking, for commenting, for interacting, for your messages, for your prayers, and for your love. Thank you for the coffees that you buy me at buymecoffee.com, for Patreon, for PayPal. I give you a promise that despite being demonetized by Google, I will continue my stand against Russian government, against unfairness, against the war, and continue telling you the truth. You have my word on that. Thank you so much. Now, to the Russian dream. You see, this general who brought this pretty young woman with unnaturally large lips and lots of plastic augmentations has reached his Russian dream. Maria Shalaeva is a part of his dream. Not her per se, but having a woman like that by his side. Flying her to where she wants and where others can't fly, and showing her off. The Russian dream is very different from the American dream. The American dream is a cultural and social ideal rooted in the belief that anyone, regardless of their background or circumstances, can achieve success, prosperity, and upward mobility through hard work, determination, and initiative. The key elements of the American dream are equal opportunity, freedom and individualism, home ownership, upward mobility, and economic security. The Russian dream is a cultural and social ideal rooted in the belief that the ultimate success in life can only be achieved through reaching the top of the vertical of power, the social system that governs Russia, and by using that power to obtain the riches and the status of being more equal than other Russians. Being more equal than others means abusing power and abusing others through that power and getting away with it. In short, the Russian dream is being the most powerful man in the room, with the most power and making sure everyone knows. And this woman, by the way, women like her in Russia are called the escort. Maria Shalaeva is one of the embodiments of success in life of her 200% reliable general. She is a prize, a beautiful, very expensive prize. Just like his mansions, bank accounts in Dubai, perhaps in Miami, just like his job in the Ministry of Defense with the office, perhaps in the Kremlin. That gives him so much power that with one movement of his finger, he organizes a military plane to take his young mistress to a restricted airspace airport and back at the expense of Russian taxpayers. And it's not the generals, not just the generals. It's everyone in Putin's system, everyone. Everyone wants to get there, to that level of being more equal than others, to get to that place where they are more equal than other Russians. Even this young girl, Maria, she wants to be more equal than others around her, to fly to the restricted airport, to be chauffeured in a Maybach, to live lavishly, and she wants to brag that she is there already. And that was exactly why she made the Instagram reel in the first place, to show the world, look, I have arrived. I am the success. I have made it. I am more equal than others. Does Maria Shalaeva run Russian army like I said in the title of this video? She personally doesn't, but collectively, women like Shalaeva do run Russian army. And money also run Russian army, and the power also run Russian army. Well, I tell you what doesn't run Russian army. That's common sense. That's empathy to the soldiers. That's, human attitude to the opponents, enemy. That doesn't run Russian army. Because the goal of everyone who joins Putin's system to rise to the very top, to have power, to obtain money, women, status, and power. Because the more power they have, the more they can abuse, the more successful they are considered in Putin's Russia, okay? They're not about public good. They're about more personal power. All the efforts of everyone are channeled towards obtaining that. And if their goal is different, and rarely there are people in Russia who, kind of join this Putin system who are decent, who care about others, who care about the society, about the country, and they want to make a difference. And then the system doesn't need them. They are crushed and thrown out. Russia cannot win in Ukraine because the generals are acting only in their own self-interests. And the Ukrainians can easily prove that. The infamous meat-storming attempts, waves that result in so many deaths, that's one of the proofs of that. And the demise of Russia in all areas that we're seeing right now, not just in the army, in the front lines, but everywhere, in the economy, in the society, everywhere, is the direct result of the Russian dream. To reach as much power and abuse it in any way possible, that's not good for the country. It can satisfy egos of certain people, very few. But for the country in general, that's a disaster. Yes, very few become more equal than other Russians, and that's what the vertical of power is. It's a pyramid. Those on the very top, they are much more equal than other Russians. But oh boy, that's a disease. Russia's biggest enemy is Russia. It is doomed to demise under this current system of governance. This system will eventually bring Russia to a complete demise. It's just a question of time. What happens after is the open question. And I would like to remind you now that if you want to stay informed of what's currently happening in Russia, consider tuning to Patreon account of Inside Russia. Every day I select 9 news that I find important and make them available to the patrons of Inside Russia at patreon.com. 9 news every day, 6 days a week, 54 news every single week. You will find information that is important, that matters, and that cannot be found anywhere in the mainstream media. Please consider joining. And before I sign off, one huge favor to ask. Once again, I consider this message very important, so please help me out to spread it as much as possible. Do 2 things. Like it, and please repost it, share this in the social media accounts that you have. Thank you so very much. I will see you soon. Carthago delenda est.